It is 11:59 on the doomsday clock of American foreign policy. This past Thursday, beneath the glowing dome of the U.S. Capitol, the foundational bedrock of the United States fractured. We just witnessed a bare-knuckle brawl between the commander-in-chief and the Constitution itself, and the Constitution blinked. With a razor-thin 219 to 212 vote, the House of Representatives effectively handed the White House a blank check to wage war in the Middle East, stripping away the very guardrails designed to prevent endless, unauthorized bloodshed. But the real story isn't just the vote. It's the astonishing hypocrisy, the backroom betrayals, and the rogue politicians who completely flipped the script. We are talking about Kentucky Republican Representative Thomas Massie defying his own party leadership to defend the Constitution, while a rogue faction of 4 Democrats handed the president the ultimate keys to the war machine. It is a high-stakes institutional crisis playing out in real time. If you think your elected officials are playing by the rules, you need to hear this. Before we dive into the classified briefings, the shifting partisan goalposts, and the terrifying irony of this historic showdown, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment below with your thoughts on presidential power, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a beat on the treacherous chess game of U.S. politics. Because what happened on the House floor isn't just political theater. It is a terrifying precedent that could drag American troops into a devastating, undeclared war with Iran. The tripwires have been laid. The question is, who is really holding the detonator? Grab a seat because Washington just tore up the rule book, and the consequences will echo for generations. We just witnessed a major collision on Capitol Hill between the commander-in-chief and the Constitution. In a deeply consequential move this Thursday, the House of Representatives effectively handed the White House a blank check, striking down an aggressive attempt to leash the president's war powers in Iran. A narrow, highly fractured vote ensured the president won't need to ask Congress for permission to keep the military machinery grinding in the Middle East. The final tally? 219 to 212. A razor-thin margin that officially blocked a bipartisan push to shut down unauthorized offensive operations against Tehran. Unsurprisingly, the dividing lines were heavily partisan, but the cracks in the armor were impossible to ignore. A rogue faction of 4 Democrats jumped ship to kill the restriction, while 2 Republicans broke ranks to champion it, sounding the alarm over what they see as dangerous executive overreach and a blatant disrespect for the legislative branch. Enter Representative Thomas Massie, the Kentucky Republican spearheading this defiance against his own party leadership. Standing on the House floor, he didn't mince words, pointing directly to the supreme law of the land. According to Massie, the constitutional blueprint is uncompromising. Congress, and Congress alone, holds the ignition keys for war. Teaming up with California Democrat Khanna, Massie invoked the 1973 War Powers Act, reminding Washington that a president can only bypass the legislature under 3 strict conditions: an official war declaration, a specific statutory green light, or a sudden, catastrophic attack on American soil. And right now, Massie boldly declared that absolutely 0 of those tripwires have been crossed. The administration naturally tried to do damage control, dispatching senior officials to Capitol Hill to brief lawmakers behind closed doors. But if they were looking to unite the room, they failed spectacularly. Democrats walked out of that classified vault utterly unconvinced that solo executive action was justified. New York's Gregory Meeks, the heavyweight Democrat on the Foreign Affairs Committee, dropped the hammer. He demanded to know where this so-called imminent threat was hiding, noting with sharp irony that the word imminent wasn't even mentioned in the White House's official notification. But across the aisle, the Republican counteroffensive was fierce. Florida's Brian Mast, leading the Foreign Affairs Committee for the GOP, fired back with 0 hesitation. To Mast, waiting for a smoking gun is a fool's errand. He argued Iran hasn't just been a threat for 4 days or 4 months, they've been a lethal menace for 4 decades. Pointing to a bloody track record that has claimed thousands of American lives, Mast painted a grim picture. Terrorists don't send a warning memo before they strike. In his eyes, Tehran is the imminent threat. This House showdown didn't happen in a vacuum. Just 24 hours earlier, the Senate engaged in the exact same partisan trench warfare, shooting down a mirror image resolution designed to force the president to beg for a congressional permission slip. Look, this turf war over who gets to push the button is a tale as old as Washington. Executives constantly push the boundaries of their military authority, usually while a fractured Congress watches from the sidelines. But this sudden escalation with Iran has ripped the bandages off an old wound. Those 2 lone Republicans willing to put a leash on the executive, Massie, joined by Ohio's Warren Davidson, and those 4 Democratic defectors handing the president the reins, Henry Cuellar of Texas, Jared Golden of Maine, Greg Landsman of Ohio, and Juan C. Vargas of California. Now let's talk about the glaring political whiplash on display here, because the hypocrisy is thick enough to cut with a knife. The goalposts on presidential war powers haven't just moved. They've been relocated to a different stadium. Suddenly, the same Republican voices arguing the president has total, unchecked authority to batter Iran are the very same politicians who screamed bloody murder when Barack Obama bypassed lawmakers to launch airstrikes in Libya back in 2011. Back then, the GOP aggressively shoved through a resolution demanding a troop withdrawal, while Democrats twisted themselves into pretzels trying to defend or condemn their guy. Today, lawmakers are retreating to their partisan corners. Texas Republican Michael McCaul leaned hard into the gravity of the moment, framing this as a monumental crusade. To him, this isn't about paperwork. It's about backing the commander-in-chief and the troops to definitively close a violent, dark chapter and forge a lasting peace in the Middle East. Yet behind the bravado, this vote was an absolute political landmine for several members. Take Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey and Jared Moskowitz of Florida, 2 fiercely pro-Israel Democrats who initially looked ready to tank the resolution. They didn't want to handcuff the president while the military was in motion. But when the dust settled on Thursday, they pulled a stunning reversal, voting with their party colleagues to rein the White House in. Why the flip? Moskowitz didn't hold back in a blistering, lengthy statement. Initially, he held his fire, terrified that tying the president's hands would shatter America's leverage in nuclear talks with Tehran. But the sheer, open-ended scale of these new strikes changed the game entirely. For Moskowitz, it's no longer just about how you feel regarding this specific war or this specific president. It's about the survival of the legislative branch itself. His warning was chilling. Congress is staring down the barrel of total irrelevancy. As he put it, we dug this grave ourselves, and nobody is coming to the rescue if we don't show a pulse. Gottheimer echoed that grim sentiment, admitting that the Senate's failure to act the day before completely altered the battle plan. For him, stepping up to support the House measure wasn't about condemning the initial airstrikes, which he openly stated he fully endorses. It was about sounding a massive alarm. It was a firm demand for this administration to finally step up to the podium, lay out the actual endgame, and prove they have a concrete strategy to keep American forces from getting sucked into yet another endless, protracted conflict. When the dust settles on this 219 to 212 vote, the true casualty isn't just a piece of legislation. It is the very balance of power in Washington. By refusing to leash the executive branch, Congress has willingly stepped onto the precipice of total irrelevancy. This isn't just about Iran, and it isn't just about this specific president. It is a profound, deeply concerning institutional surrender. As representatives like Jared Moskowitz and Josh Gottheimer realized at the 11th hour, if the legislative branch refuses to show a pulse, no one is coming to save it. Looking forward, the United States is standing at a terrifying crossroads with several potential outcomes. In one scenario, this newly affirmed unchecked authority emboldens the White House, dragging American forces into a sweeping, open-ended regional conflict without a concrete endgame, doomed to repeat the darkest, most exhausting chapters of our military history. In another scenario, this glaring overreach finally triggers a massive, bipartisan constitutional reckoning, forcing a unified public to rip the war-making powers back to the Capitol. The ultimate, bitter irony is that the same politicians who once screamed about executive overreach a decade ago have now willingly handed over the ignition keys to the war machine. The fuse is lit, and the Middle East remains an absolute powder keg. Will this be the controversial move that secures peace through strength, or the fatal misstep that plunges the nation into another endless war? The history books are being written right now, and the ending is entirely unwritten. What do you think happens next? Drop your future scenario predictions down in the comments below. If you found this breakdown insightful, smash that subscribe button, like this video, and share it. Stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.